says it's going live. It says it's going live. Am I live? Am I live, YouTube? Can you give me some sort of acknowledgement that I've pressed the right button? Because in the 3 weeks or something since I've last done this, I've completely forgotten all my setup things. So I'm going to trust that it's working and that if you're watching on YouTube, you can hear me. But otherwise, hello. It feels like it's been fucking ages since I got to talk to somebody who I wasn't trapped in the middle of the jungle with in a little forest clearing. So hope everyone's doing awesome. Yeah, what have you guys been up to? What have I been up to? Fucking hell, I don't even know where to start with the kind of shit that I've been up to. But for anyone who doesn't know, I've been away in the Peruvian Amazon for about the last 3 weeks. Well, about 2 weeks of it, I was actually in the Amazon. The other week was kind of traveling to get there and spending some time just hanging around in Iquitos and Lima and just chilling around Peru. But for 2 weeks of it, I have been pretty much completely off-grid, probably the most off-grid I've ever been, at a place called Morosa Ayahuasca Center, where I did 8 ayahuasca ceremonies within a space of about 12 days, along with a load of other stuff, a thing called a master plant diet, which is not the same as a vegetarian diet. What there is? Oh, someone's saying that the audio's not working. Hold on. Okay, so anybody who's in the chat, can you hear me? Because I've got one guy who said it's not working. So I'll tell you what. Let's pick up one of my faves. Stan, can you hear me, dude? Just post a message in the chat on YouTube if you can hear me. Stan Cooper. Stan, come on, Stan. Yep. Audio. All right, Preston, don't freak me out. Tell me the audio's not working, mate. I don't need this. I've come back. I'm trying to be all chill and enlightened. People tell me the audio's not working. Well, man, it's on your fault, Preston. It's your fault, mate. Sort your own audio out. Oh, well, at least everyone else can hear me. So I don't know, Preston, mate. Maybe it's on your side, but cool. At least I'm just not just rambling to the world. I am noticing that the camera, the kind of camera thing that I'm using to sort of filter out the grease stain seems to have an issue with one of my tattoos. So it looks like chunks out of my arm have disappeared. But don't worry, it's not like I've had bites taken out of me by creatures in the jungle. So yeah, anyway, that like I was saying, I've just done these ayahuasca ceremonies and this master plant diet. And someone's asking in the chat, is it a kind of vegan diet? No, a master plant diet is nothing to do with being vegetarian or vegan. When people refer to a master plant diet in terms of going on one of these retreats, what they're talking about is when you ingest a certain kinds of plants. And the idea here, and this is one of the reasons I went to do this, because I wanted to see what it was about. But basically, when you, it's kind of like a way of having communion with a certain kind of plant. So you drink in these, you get the plant and either you take the bark off it or you take the roots off it and you turn it into a kind of drink. And then you drink this, and it's not intended to be psychoactive. So this is not the same as drinking something like ayahuasca or, something which is intended to have an instant trip to it. The idea is that you are ingesting this over time, like on a sort of a daily basis for a number of days, and that you're basically inviting this kind of plant consciousness into your body. And this is kind of what the shamans do when you hear about shamanic training, and that they go away and they live in the jungle and that they eat all these plants. They kind of flood their body with these plants. That's what they're doing. They're having this kind of they're doing these plant diets. And this is what kind of reveals to them the kind of like, a lot of the sort of like the secrets of the plants, like things that come out in these icaros, these songs that they sing. Now, just to be absolutely clear, I am not trying to become a shaman or trying to particularly, follow that path. But I'd heard a lot about these plant diets, as this was seen as like the kind of like a way of opening up or changing the way these ayahuasca experiences play out. So I was curious. Also, it's kind of people talk about them sort of being able to help with certain attributes, like sort of anxiety or self-confidence, things like that. So I was just curious, like, is this something worth pursuing, or is this just I don't know, something not, I wanted to know if there's anything in it of value to myself. So the way to do that is I went and did one. And yeah, this is something that I'll be going into much more detail on in upcoming videos. But I guess, you know, just as a quick question, like, yeah, did it do anything for me? And I don't like to sort of say too much too early on these things, because when you do these things, it is intended to be like a long-term thing. It's not an instant psychoactive thing. So it's not like you take it and you instantly feel it. But I will say, if it has had some sort of effect, it's fairly subtle. And it's hard for me to parse out whether the things that I'm feeling about this particular retreat are coming from the kind of like the highs of the ayahuasca and the other kind of medicines that we're taking, or whether it's part of this master plant diet. So I'm going to reserve judgment on it for the moment. Some people really, really like sing the praises of these plant diets. There's some bits where I felt something was happening, but again, I think it probably needs more explanation. Otherwise, I'll just turn this into going very granular on what this plant diet was. But it's something that I did, and yeah, it was one of the sort of things that you have to do along with this plant diet. There are kind of other restrictions you put in place, like you're not allowed to touch people, so you're not completely in isolation. Although some plant diets do require you to go into isolation, like literally just like be on your own for months. This one wasn't quite that restrictive, but we weren't allowed to sort of to touch other people. The idea being that this like could transfer energy between you. Again, I'm not sure whether I started necessarily buy that, but yeah, it was a thing. So yeah, that's what I've been up to. Oh, before I sort of go down any ramblings about the nature of this retreat and stuff like that, I'll just state the usual stuff. The format here with this live stream is that if you want to, you can come and have a chat with me. You can sort of call in and we can talk about whatever you want. We can talk about, ask me anything about the retreat I've been on, or anything about any of the videos that I've made, or just anything in general. If you just want to chat something or share a story that you feel is relevant to the psychedelic community, then please, come and share my platform. And the way that you do that is through Discord. So we have a channel set up on Discord, which is called Live Stream Calling. I'll just put a quick screenshot up. So you can see it in the top left corner here. It says Stream Calling. If you join that Discord channel, then there is a facility there where you can press a button and it raises your hand. I will then know that you want to speak, and then I'll bring you in and you'll pop up as a caller, and then we can have a chat, and everyone else will be able to hear it over the YouTube stream. Let me just get rid of that screenshot. So there we go. Anybody wants to chat, just raise your hand over on Discord. I can see I've got a couple of hands raised, so I'll just do a couple of questions from the text at the moment. So Big Wheel says, I want to do one of these retreats, but just eating just plants and vegetables for a week or two isn't possible for me, as I'm a carnivore. I never felt better. I need to start a carnivore retreat. No, Big Wheel, mate, it's nothing to do with being vegetarian. So I am not a vegetarian, and I've not been eating vegetarian for the last 2 weeks. The retreat that I went on, in fact, there are some retreats where they make being vegetarian a requirement. This has got nothing to do with shamanism. Shamans are not vegetarians. If you go to a traditional ayahuasca retreat, they'll be eating chicken, fish. They don't eat red meat, but yeah, chicken and fish are part of the kind of like the average shamanic diet. If you go into one and they say they're only vegetarian, that's just their own belief that they're putting in there. I have never been on a retreat where it has been purely vegetarian. So yeah, I've been eating chicken pretty much every day for that 2 weeks. It is a very clean diet that you eat. The food is kind of notoriously bland. So you kind of eat stuff like chicken, like vegetables, lentils, rice. There's not a lot of spices on there. There's not any kind of spices or oils or anything like that. So it's a very simple diet. The idea is that this helps you sort of connect more to the things that you're taking, things like ayahuasca and these plants that you're taking. But yeah, mate, you'll be fine. If you're a carnivore, like I am, then yeah, you'll be absolutely fine. From the Hakti Zero, your Icaro is your heartfelt song, the earnest spirit communing, not dissimilar to glossolalia. So yeah, I've actually got a video I'm going to be putting out where I was, one of the people who I was on this retreat with was someone who was apprenticing under a shaman. and he was a really nice guy. A guy was called Markham, and he's from the kind of the Western world. So he's kind of like he's got his roots in Brazil, and that's where he comes from. But more or less, he's like he's American by sort of where he grew up. So he's come from our world, although he had some background in being able to sort of speak like Portuguese and Spanish and stuff like that. And he was doing an apprenticeship there at Morocco. So he's going to be there he's been there like 3 or 4 months, I believe. And this is not his first time there. He goes there in these big chunks of 3 or 4 months. And yeah, so I got a chance to speak to him and talk about this kind of transition of a Westerner into these kind of shamanic traditions. And he was just coming into learning his Icaros. So as Ducati mentions, that these are songs that come to you from the plants. No, this is not something that you learn, or that you it is something that you it kind of comes to you. It's not something that you compose. It's something that you're in ceremony, and suddenly people just kind of like ba 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 and start bursting into song, and you hear this from the shamans, and it can be a language that you're familiar with. Often it can come out just as kind of noises or chant or kind of chanting. It's not specifically words, as in like language words. It's kind of like a language to the transcendent. And Marco was just coming into this, and I was, we had a good conversation about what's it like to, first of all, to be a Westerner, to be an outsider. You come into these shamanic circles, and you've got these kind of shamans all singing this stuff very powerfully and confidently, and then you suddenly start feeling this urge to sing, and I was like, is this intimidating? How do you feel like, and he wasn't a singer by background. He wasn't somebody who just typically like burst into song. So yeah, look out for that. I'll probably be posting that next week, and you can I think it gives an interesting insight into the route of somebody basically apprenticing into these kind of medicines. From Karina. Hey Karina, why did you decide to visit a different retreat? Good question. A couple of reasons, mate. Firstly, it's just one of the things I do. I like to visit different places. I've certainly, I've got places where I've been to multiple times, but one of my aims when I was doing this kind of thing of visiting retreats was to try and have a broader experience. It's not that I've fallen out with sort of some other centre or like gone off them. It's just I just enjoy experiencing different places, and what I've found is that when I've done that, because it's very easy to sort of get locked into a mindset like, I found this place, I'm comfortable, these guys are the best, there's nothing better. And what I found is every time that I've gone somewhere new and experienced like a kind of different shamans, different singing, different traditions, just different places, then it's just given me a wider perspective. So there was that aspect of it. The other thing was with this particular centre, I would say they specialise more on these plant diets, and that was something I really wanted to try this time. Other centres do these plant diets too, but this one I would say was more specialised towards that, and also the cost, the pricing of it was more geared towards that for these longer term stays. So yeah, there was a few factors there. I'm going to be sort of covering that again. I've got videos planned out for a lot of these topics. But yeah, I guess the simplest reason was just try something new. I knew one of the shamans that owned this centre, so I'd worked with her previously at another retreat, and so when like a shaman then goes and starts her own centre, I want to support these different shamans. So a lot of these shamans that I work with, I've met at previous retreats. So you may have heard me talk about Wheeler, who runs Ayahuasca Spirit. I met him when I first went on my first retreat in Peru, which was at a place called Pulse Tours. And another one of the shamans from Pulse Tours was this female shaman called Angela, who I believe was actually a apprentice of Wheeler. And so Angela's now gone and started Morosa. So I'm kind of like, I want to support all these people. I want to support Wheeler, I want to support Angela, and just see what they're up to within their own, as they branch off and do their own things and the kind of shamanic community grows. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question, mate. From ethereal, I forgot how to pronounce that word. Ethereal, that's how you do it. Ethereal Psychonaut. Greetings. Have you experienced extreme psychosis from taking psychedelics? If so, how do you deal with it? The short answer to that, mate, is no, I don't believe I have. I've certainly had experiences which have left me very shaken, and I've had experiences where I thought, I think, at some point we've all had to think of like, have I broken my brain? But psychosis is a fairly specific thing, and I've never had something where I was, felt like I was going mad or was seeing stuff which I could not, seeing stuff outside of the experience where I couldn't tell if it was real or not. So yeah, I'm not really qualified to answer that question, mate. My relationship with psychedelics has been, I don't know how to describe it, pretty positive, to be honest, mate. I mean, I've been doing them for like 30 odd years now, so no psychosis, I'm afraid. But if anybody has an experience of psychosis and wants to chip in, let me know. So I'll just do a couple of more questions before I get to the call-ins. When you take ayahuasca in a group, do you tap into the others' energies and traumas? How do you protect your own energy and focus on your experience? How to avoid transferences? That is a great question. It's one of the bigger challenges within doing something like ayahuasca in a group, particularly when you go into a group of strangers, because you don't know how people are going to react and how the experience is going to kind of bleed over into. And for somebody like me, like I've said, kind of, many times on this channel, I am a bit of a control freak, and I like I really like the Shipibo style of ceremony, because for the most part you have a mat, you have a dark room, a maloka, and the protocol is you go and you drink your ayahuasca, you lie on your mat, and you pretty much shut up for like 3 to 4 hours, and the shamans do their thing. And of course you can make noise if you need to make noise, if you need to throw up, if you need to scream or shout or sob, you can do all that. But otherwise you stay on your mat and you don't do anything. So, and you don't do anything in a controlled way which could possibly distract other people. So you don't start talking to other people. You don't lean over to the person on the mat next to, hey, what's going on with you? You keep it to yourself, and you try and internalize the experience as much as possible. Now, there are different styles of ceremony, and some ceremonies are not like that. They do things like where you're allowed to dance and sing and talk. But I don't like those. I like to sort of like sit there, work on my shit. So back to your question, like you're saying, like how do you protect against sort of, the energies of other people? It can be very difficult, to be honest. There are some bits where you just, in fact, strangely enough, the easiest things to blot out are people being sick and people sort of, crying or laughing and stuff like that. But then occasionally, and this was certainly a problem on this retreat I've just been on, people would just start singing or start singing on. Now, when you're there, this is considered kind of rude, to be honest, because the shamans are singing. They're the ones who are sort of holding that space and creating that energy. And yeah, there was some guys, or one particular guy, who would just start bursting into like Bible songs in ceremony. And that got on my tits a little bit, to be honest. How do you how do you deal with it? You just have to kind of, it's a tricky one, how to describe. It's basically you just have to kind of like block it out. It's almost like a meditative thing that you do. You sort of recognize that there are things going on in the room and don't let them ingress into your full consciousness and take over. It can be very tricky when you're in a full ayahuasca trip. I think I'd probably need to make a video on more detail regarding that. So I can see I'll come back to the text questions shortly, but let me just go over to some of the guys who are waiting on the call in. So we'll start with Secular Shaman and click the invite to speak. You there, mate?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you a little bit quiet, but I can hear you.
I can fix that. It's better now.
It's about the same, but I can hear you fine. It's okay.
Okay, should be better now. Just don't want to
that's
echo
better.
your own sound because I'm not on speakers right now.
No worries, mate.
First of all, I didn't realize you went to a different retreat, and today I saw that Arcana Jungle Retreat has a pool, and I was really, really jealous of you. But now I realize you didn't go there.
I didn't, but I did stop by Arcana, and I also so I discovered they had a pool. Yeah, so I'll just to kind of give you the backstory. So on the Saturday, so I was there at Morosa for 2 weeks, and on the Saturday, which is a kind of like a day off from all the ceremonies and stuff like that, we went on a boat trip. So we went visiting a couple of villages, and one of the villages was next to Arcana. So I popped next door to say hello and just to see if there's anybody there who I knew, and I had a conversation with the manager, and I saw that they've completely remodeled the place. And part of that remodeling was that they've
Solar panels, pools. It looks completely different right now.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure how I felt about it, to be honest. I was quite shocked to see it because I've been going to Arcana for years, and it's got a place in my heart for the way it looked, because I've had a lot of good times there with a lot of sort of good friends. And yeah, when I say when they completely remodel it, it's a pretty drastic remodeling, and the addition of a pool kind of changes the whole aesthetic of the place, to be honest.
Yeah, totally.
And yeah, I was quite shocked by it. Yeah, I must say, I don't know, because there's something in my heart where I liked the way it was. It had a very sort of traditional feel to it. I just thought it was a beautiful center. Now it looks more like a resort, and yeah, that didn't quite gel well with me. I can certainly see the benefits of having a pool on these hot, humid jungle days, but that's not what I go to a retreat for. When I go to a retreat, I don't necessarily want to be at like a holiday resort. So yeah, I was kind of like, I was just completely shocked, to be honest. When I was like, I don't know what to say about this. So yeah, what I would say that if anybody's thinking of going to Arcana and you're looking at my videos and stuff like, it doesn't look like that anymore.
It's out of date, yeah.
Yeah. I've got to say, it looks good. It doesn't look bad or anything like that. It's definitely they've modernized it. Some bits I thought were really cool. But it's not the same place that it was. So if you're looking at my sort of videos thinking of like, this is like a very authentic looking like jungle retreat, yeah, it's more like
likely less now.
Yeah, it's definitely got more of a resort feel to it now. Now that's how it's operating, I've got no idea. Maybe it's got the same vibe and the same heart and stuff like that. I know some of the same people are still working there. But yeah, I was taken aback when I saw it, I'll put it that way.
The adjacent village is called Santiago, if I remember correctly.
Libertad, it's called.
Libertad, yeah, correct.
Yeah, so that's, we went there to have some lunch. We'd just been doing all the kind of Monkey Island tours and stuff like that. And when I realised we were pulling to Libertad, I was like, oh, I'll pop next door and just have a quick chat. And then I was like, this is...
Wow.
This is, yeah. I mean, some of the stuff they've added is very... I'd say is going more towards the high end. They've added some additional rooms which have got like built, like sort of, I think it's like air-conditioned rooms, like built-in bathrooms and stuff like that.
Slowly becoming arrhythmia.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's going that far. 'Cause, I mean, Rhythmia's been in the news recently with its own stuff. But I mean, Rhythmia's is what I would call like a mega center almost. It's I believe it accommodates like 80 people at a time. So that's a whole.
Oh, what, really?
Yeah, I mean,
shit.
That's what I've heard. I've never been to Rhythmia, but I've heard that the ceremonies there can have up to like 80 people in them. Again, that's only what I picked up off the internet. But yeah, I mean, Rhythmia's a kind of like a whole different kettle of fish. I think I was pondering that with like, is it inevitable that with these ayahuasca centers, as they get more successful, are they always going to end up catering towards this kind of high-end market? And I hope not, because I think there's something to be had. I can only really speak for myself. When I go to somewhere like Peru, I'm not looking for that
luxury.
For that kind of, I'm looking for something that feels more simple. I'm not looking necessarily to have like a good time by the pool. I'm looking for a place where I can have sort of,
Something more ascetic, more monastic, so you can do your work.
Yeah, exactly. Now, but no, along with that, you don't want it necessarily to be something sadistic, or
Yes, of course.
sadomasochistic. So um, but it's just not my priority. And also with the way that prices are going up with these things, because Arcana is not the same price these days as what it was when I first went. It's now, coming up to close to like double what I paid when I first went there. So this is another one of the reasons why I wanted to try and try a different center, ones that's kind of like more in this price bracket, which is affordable to me. And Moroso, where I went to, is certainly fit that. Although I kind of there is a difference in what you get for the money. So again, I'll be putting out a sort of a more in-depth review on Moroso. But yeah, I kind of. I prefer the simpler, more straightforward thing.
Did you know, or did you pick the plants you did dietas with, or did they pick them for you?
They pick them for you. So apparently, the way it works, or at least the way it's been described to me, is that you go and you do one ayahuasca ceremony, and within that ayahuasca ceremony, the kind of the plant you should work with will be revealed to the shaman. So they tell you the next day, you're going to work with this one. And you start from there. I don't know how that works kind of long term. Like if I went back and I was going to, I'd already dieted like 3 of these plants. Then I would assume that I'd say, well, I've already done these ones. I don't need to do them again, or maybe they would just be able to tell that. But yeah, it's kind of pick for you. And I wanted that, to be honest. I didn't want to go and tell them like, I think I should do this, because I'm not an expert on it. So I'll let them pick them. The one they picked for me was called Aho Sasha. It kind of smells kind of garlicky. And yeah, it was like a drink that I had to drink over. It was just for 2 days that I had to drink it. I think I like one in the morning, one in the evening. And it was nothing particularly brutal to drink. It's not like drinking ayahuasca or San Pedro or something. It's just a kind of little smoothie almost of like green stuff, and you just drink it down.
Was your real diet only fish and rice while doing that?
No, it wasn't just fish and rice. Some of them are quite extreme, but for me, I don't eat fish, so mine was chicken as a kind of source of protein, and it was rice or like lentils, or there was like sort of boiled vegetables, eggs for breakfast. That's pretty much it. It was very basic. It was very basic, very plain food, but it wasn't just some of these diets are literally just like eggs and rice. That's your meal, every meal. This wasn't that restrictive.
Just to clarify for the chatter before, this is for dietas in particular. Like normal food, as we said before, there is a large variety. But because that guy mentioned he's a carnivore, if you mean you're 100% a carnivore, then you might have to sort of, do a little concession and fill part of your diet with rice at least. Because if you eat all the chicken, other people will be angry at you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think if you were 100% carnivore, then yeah, that would be something you would have to clear with the center beforehand, because particularly with all these centers, they're in some kind of remote location. There's not a whole lot of refrigeration or freeze and stuff going on, so food is kind of like being brought in for them. So you can't. It's not a restaurant. You can't just say I want this when you get there. So yeah, if there is anyone who's had any special food requirements, you would have to tell them that up front. Like if you were only going to eat this, and I certainly did. I told them before I went that I only eat chicken, and so that I don't want any fish, and so they're fine. If you give them advance warning, then I'm sure they'll try and accommodate you. But yeah, I'd imagine that a 100% carnivore diet would be very tricky to maintain out there.
Yeah, especially in the jungle, possible in the Sacred Valley maybe, because that's more, central and civilized. But yeah, in the jungle, there was one day where I actually did not eat lunch because I was doing Sapo 5-MeO DMT, and I was one of the last people to do it. And when I went there, there was no food left. But I honestly couldn't be angry after having just done 5-MeO DMT. So I was like, okay, I'll just eat a spoonful of rice, and that's it for today, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, the Sacred Valley, I found that the food was a lot less restrictive than it is in the jungle. They tend to put like there's a bit more salt in things. There's a bit of a wider variety of what do you like kind of sauces and stuff that they put on stuff. So yeah, I the food is a lot more enjoyable than the jungle food. But I just like the jungle setting more. So it swings and roundabouts really, I think, with those.
Yeah. Would be really curious if you just did the dieta and not ayahuasca, because as you said, now your results and whatever realizations you might have long term might be actually the ayahuasca and not the dieta, but we can never repeat that experiment now.
Yeah, I mean it's there were some parts within my ayahuasca experiences where I felt that I had a bit more resolve to deal with things, or that I had a bit of a better perspective to deal with, because as usual, there were a few challenging experiences, and I was wondering, okay, is this because of the plant? Is it because of the plant diet?
Or just a better mindset this time because
Yeah.
you've been through life and you're experienced.
Yeah, exactly. So is it just because I'm now more experienced with ayahuasca? Is this just purely psychosomatic that I'm kind of like attributing this? And this is kind of why I said it. It's whatever's going on with these plants, or at least in my case, it's subtle. I'll put it that way. So if people are looking to have, I'd say particularly people looking for a kind of like psychonautic, psychedelic exploration, and thinking that these plants are going to offer some kind of like next level psychedelic experience, I would say they don't, or at least that's my experience. However, if you're looking to sort of work on yourself and particularly go down that more shamanic path, then yeah, I would say that there's some, it feels like there's something there, but it kind of depends on what you're after. For me, I was coming at it from more a curiosity point of view. One of the guys I was talking to on the street, who I'm going to be putting out this video with, he's like fully deep into this kind of shamanic path, and he's been doing multiple of these diets. He thinks they've sort of revealed extraordinary things to him. That wasn't my experience of it, but again, I want to kind of let that one sit for a while before I sort of.
Yeah. I understand. I also sort of got an overarching lesson from 2 weeks in with Arcana instead of, just one single ceremony being very revealing. So by all means, sit with it. I'm curious to see what the results will be.
Yeah, mate, me too. Because I mean, one of the things of this is that it is supposed to be a long-term, fundamental like relationship that you have with this kind of plant. So
do you continue now? Like, do you have the plants with you?
No, I don't have the plants with me, and they kind of they open this diet. So you start your diet, you ingest the plants, and they close the diet. And when the opening and closing is done by means of Icaros, by sort of songs that they sing to you, and then it's basically kind of the idea is that you kind of continue sort of communing with the plant, via like meditation, by just like sort of sitting, spending time with it. But yeah, I'm not ingesting it anymore.
Mm-hmm. Icaros, since you mentioned them, my interpretation of the genesis of an Icaro is sort of the same thing that in the West we call glossolalia, just, with a musical vibe to it and potential, Spanish words mixed in with the quote unquote plant words that are nonsensical sounds really, or, Shipibo words and stuff like that. Do you interpret it as sort of the same phenomenon?
I can see what you mean there. I would interpret it as something slightly different. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely some overlap there. So just for people who sort of know what we're talking about. So glossolalia is a kind of phenomenon. I think the one most people would be commonly know is like speaking in tongues. So when you see, these biblical, these preachers, particularly like Southern America, and they'll just suddenly sort of like burst into and it's like, they're possessed by the Holy Spirit and they start just blurting out noises, and that's glossolalia. It's kind of language that's something that sounds like language, but isn't. It's just kind of noises, and it's kind of common. I've seen people do. In fact, I've done it myself in sort of psychedelic states, where basically you just kind of like start making noises. Now, I've always attributed that with myself is just that you start doing something and it just feels kind of awesome to do it. So, you might just be sat there tripping and just like, and you can start getting this kind of blending of sort of noises to visual to sort of to emotional feelings. But when I've sort of talked to shamans and stuff regarding Icaros, they don't quite describe it like that. They sort of describe it more as this plant starts just basically like speaking through them. So it's almost like like you've got like another consciousness within your body, and it's kind of, it takes over. And in fact, one of them described it as, I don't do anything. The plant sort of moves me. And so, then these kind of, and so they're not composing these songs. And these songs are musical and have a melody to them. And like you mentioned, they have sort of certain bits of language thrown in amongst certain bits of what might be like gibberish or mishmash of languages. So you certainly get some bits where it's kind of Spanish mixed with Portuguese, mixed with Shipibo
language, or
mixed with just noises and stuff like that. And usually, particularly when it's coming from like a experienced shaman, there's an amazing degree of vocal control going on in there, like a sort of being able to shift between different tones and stuff. So they described, that's how it was described to me. So I guess it would depend on like how you would define like glossolalia, whether that is really like another consciousness taking control of somebody, or whether it's just somebody sort of like so I think there's maybe it's tapping into the same kind of mechanism there as glossolalia.
That's what I meant. And potentially, the priests in the mega churches might just be faking it and giving a show. Whereas once you're in the midst of a psychedelic experience, like even myself, I have found myself doing repeated hums and maybe adding words in those hums and stuff like that. And I would interpret that as kind of, a glossolalia-like mechanism on myself.
Yeah. I mean, I think there is something, there does seem to be something particularly within, I'd say, these ayahuasca experiences where singing or kind of like humming or emitting notes, it does feel like something you almost like kind of want to call out to this kind of like the experience that's happening around you. So I can understand where the kind of the roots of this singing and shamanism come from, because it almost seems like the appropriate way to have a dialogue with the experience is through singing. So there's something to it. But I mean, like I said, you might find this video of this apprentice guy interesting, because he talks a lot about this, about how he feels when the songs sort of started coming to him, and he described it as that he just felt his kind of throat open in this kind of new way, and it's just that and it just came out in a way that even surprises him. So it's interesting stuff.
Even the vibration you get both internally and externally from producing song, even in a non-psychedelic experience, can be really powerful. Like I used to do, don't laugh, but I used to do death metal vocals, and during a jam session or a live session, going into that state of focusing on that breath in order to produce that deep guttural sound and feeling all that energy in your chest, it just in and of itself puts you in an altered state, regardless of having taken anything or not. So it's really powerful, and I really, really get that.
Well, like I can show some solidarity to you, mate, because I also used to play guitar and sing in various like thrash metal bands and stuff like that. And it was interesting because I this actually came to me. This was part of the thing in this retreat, and I kind of realized, like, God, I used to sing all the time when I was like a teenager in my sort of 20s, and then when we were kind of playing, we got to playing in like a number of different bands. I used to really enjoy singing, but then I just kind of stopped, and I've not really done it since my 20s. And I kind of realized as well that when I was
in the same boat there,
and when I was singing that, I was imitating sort of like the James Hetfields, the Dave Mustaines, like the Metallicas and the Megadeths and the Sepulturas. I would try and imitate the songs that I was playing. And I realized in this retreat, like, well, first of all, that I miss that singing. And when I was listening to this apprentice guy, I was like, God, I used to do that. Like, why did I stop singing? And then the other thing was like, I need to find my own voice, because I've always imitated other people. Like, I go and do karaoke and I'll imitate like Jim Morrison, from the Doors, and I do an alright job of it, but it's not my voice. And so,
Vocal lessons, by all means, go have them. It's never too late.
yeah. Well, I think it's just something I need to
Work on your own too.
become comfortable with. And I've been doing a lot of work with Rapé and sort of working with Mapacho, and I've just started just particularly while I was on retreat and I was in like, you know, a lot of spending a lot of time on my own, just making a few sort of noises and just trying to find my own voice, like what do I sound like. So yeah, it's I'm not necessarily saying I've got to sort of eat my own Icaros or anything like that, but it's it's something I'm exploring, I'll put it that way.
Yeah, and being on your own is actually very beneficial, because if you're trying to produce new sounds that are potentially at least funny to other people, it's best to be a little bit isolated. That's how I figured out how to do vocals myself. I would just go to the top of the hill with, you know, a bunch of goats, knowing that no humans are around me to judge me.
Well, I think that's what I'm gonna have to do, is because now I'm back at home with I've got my, you know, Rachel and the kids around. It's like, okay, am I quite gonna belt this out in the way that's gonna give me any meaningful practice? So I'm gonna have to go out myself and sort of practice it. But just as an interesting side to that, you know, if you've ever heard the sort of like the stories of like Terence and Dennis McKenna doing the experiments at La Chuera,
Yeah.
and
Where they're trying to sync with their voices and summon
Exactly,
the
yeah.
artifact and stuff like that. Yeah.
So there's something in us kind of human beings of trying to connect with the transcendent via our voices. It's clearly there in shamanism. It's clearly there in sort of, you know, in within this kind of this psychedelic space. It feels
Even
good.
in modern religion, there's always,
Exactly,
you know,
yeah.
psalms and hymns and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's something I'm kind of interested in exploring. But yeah, I'll let you know if I get anywhere good with it. I'm not going to start making videos of me trying to learn to sing it, because I'm not quite got the confidence there yet.
Yeah. I want to comment before that Sepultura was actually a good vibe for the jungle to imitate, probably.
Yeah. Well, I used to love Sepultura when they were in this in the heyday. Yeah, I mean, they were
Tribal and groovy.
Brazilian, yeah. Like, what was that song? They did like the instrumental song. They did called, I think it was called Keovas or something like that. With lots of drumming and.
Yep.
Yeah, I was a big fan of Sepultura before, but then they kind of split up, didn't they, and went all separate ways.
Yeah. The Cavalera's left. Now the band, I don't think they have any original members left. I don't even know what type of music they play, but yeah, original stuff I really liked. One thing before I go and free up sometimes for other callers, somebody asked about transferences, and I responded to him on chat saying, you know, deal it with the same way as you would if you weren't on psychedelics. Just be mindful of what's yours and what belongs to another person. And, you know, if you're empathetic, just try to recognize it, and, you know, you can feel, but don't let it overwhelm you. But I had a really peculiar experience. It was my third session, during which for a good chunk of the session, it felt to me as if I was going into each and every one that was there, you know, having the experience, my co-trippers, so to say. And from the little that I knew them up until that point, it felt like I was going through their pain and trauma, and I was living it as themselves. But obviously it was a projection of what I believed they were going through. And I couldn't stop. Like, I didn't want to go through that. It felt very weird and intrusive in a way. I legit visually felt like I was going in somebody else. But I just couldn't stop it, and it only stopped after I circled through everyone in the room. Sometimes, I think including some facilitators. And it was really, really draining and interesting. And it just came to me as an experience given that question. I don't know if you've experienced anything similar like that. And not because the other people, you know, were screaming or because of what they were doing, they were drawing my attention to me. It was a relatively quiet night, that one. Previous ones were hell, chaos. But that one, yeah, it just manifested that way for me. It was really peculiar.
Yeah, I think the closest I've had to something like that is... luckily it was kind of a positive thing. So I've certainly had it where, like, we were deep in the ayahuasca experience, and I kind of sat up and I started looking around the room, and because you get that kind of night vision thing going on with ayahuasca where you can just see in the dark, or maybe the moon had popped out or something. But I felt like my boundaries were completely dissolved, and I was just kind of flooding, like consciousness was just flooding around the room, connecting to sort of people. And I just felt like there was a few of us sort of who were in this same state, and we were just sort of connected together. And I remember just like looking around the room and like, And just the thought was like, when people talk about it being sort of telepathic, I absolutely understand what they mean. I mean, it does feel like you're in sort of telepathic communication. And I was just like, I just remember just like, this is amazing. This is absolutely amazing. And like, I was kind of like, the voices coming to me were like, yeah, we know. It's like, it was like a sort of an academy of utopian future human beings who were just sort of there, sitting cross-legged on these mats, just connected, like, directly, indirectly, emotionally. And so that was an incredibly beautiful experience. It wasn't this kind of what you're just going to like feeling people's sort of trauma, but I've certainly had the sort of the when I've been having difficult nights, and when we're talking about like sort of transference from other people, then this is why I kind of prefer the Shipibo thing, because then if you're having a difficult time and then something else starts bleeding into you, that can just multiply your own suffering immensely.
Yeah.
So it's I think the advice that you gave is that is spot on. Is that you have to sort of be able to, I don't know, I'd say
discern.
Basically just pass out your own experience from other people's, and just kind of almost just see it as like part of like I've been sat there with like, God, I wish that guy had shut up, I just because they're just intruding on me. But it's like, no, focus on yourself. Just focus on, that's not what you're here for. You're not here to bitch about this other person who's making noises 3 mats down. Just focus on
Or
yourself.
past judgment or stuff like that.
Exactly. Yeah. So but it's tricky.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that it can be tricky sometimes. Sometimes it can be, you can really sort of start having other people's experiences like come into your own consciousness and sort of like take over, and it can get very messy.
I've had that with a really, really gentle guy who sadly had gone through a lot in his life, and we had discussed it the day of or the day before, I don't remember, dark stuff that I won't go through. And during the experience, obviously those stuff were manifesting, and the guy was crying, screaming, please no, please no, please no. And it was a very peculiar mix of emotions, because at the once, I don't want that, but at the same time I was crying and filled with love and compassion and feeling his own pain in a very small way. Obviously it's his, not mine. And you need to, whatever the state is, to have the wherewithal to try and work on your things while this is happening. And it's an interesting setting, to say the least.
Yeah, I'll briefly share something that happened from not this retreat that I've just been on, but the one previous. So, and this was one of those kind of bizarre coincidences that happened within the universe when you go on these retreats. But I ended up sat next to a guy who, and this was a fairly big strapping guy, but he had his own sort of mother issues. Now, anyone who's watched my channel for a while will have heard me talk about my own sort of mother issues, and sort of like, stuff I work on when I go on these ayahuasca retreats. And this guy was extremely vocal as he was going through his experience. He was like calling out, like, Mama, please help me, Mama, please help me. And to say that it triggered me would be like a massive understatement. And I found that was extremely difficult for me to. It was almost like this guy was like manifesting my inner child, like almost he was speaking in this like child's voice, like begging for help from his mother who was not there. And I was like, oh my God, that was a challenging experience. But yeah, I mean, it was just a weird coincidence that he was the guy on the mat next to me, manifesting these kind of, what was kind of like inside of me was coming out through him. So I don't know whether it was just, I kind of look at those things as like, oh, well, that's just how it,
synchronicities.
Yeah, how it needed to be. That was how the universe planned for it. So
yeah, and that's one thing I always tell to people, like when they tell me, is it worth doing ayahuasca? But sometimes I'll tell them, you know what, if you want the same mental space to be and find healing, psilocybin can take you there. And if you're, insensitive, just take more psilocybin and you don't have to go through all this thing. But the group session is something special, and it might introduce quote unquote random variables that you never predicted for that can turn out to be actually teaching and beneficial. So yeah, it's a very special way of doing psychedelics that way.
I think that's exactly it. And that's, when I fully appreciate that when people hear about what goes on in ayahuasca ceremonies and that the variables of these different people, it can sound like absolute hell. Like, why would you want to have people throwing up around you? And I totally get it. That's actually like the smallest part of it. I think, like I said, the people throwing up around you, it really doesn't factor into it that much at all. But there is something about these group settings, and it can work both ways. You can have groups that do not gel at all. There's actually a lot of friction stuff there. But you can have groups where something something collective emerges out of this kind of group thing. And that was something in particular for me, which has been beneficial, because I was very, I would say, like introverted, sort of reclusive, antisocial. And so putting myself in that kind of group situation was almost like part of the challenge of doing it, as much as the ayahuasca itself was. And it's the same. I'd say it's the same as with psychedelics themselves. If you want to be surprised, if you want novelty to happen, if you want something to happen that comes from outside, that's unimaginable, it's not going to come if you try and control it and just in your bedroom with what you think makes you sort of comfortable. That's not to say you shouldn't do that, because I certainly do things in my own house and in a way, but if you put yourself out there into the realm of like complete novelty, then real magic can happen there. And so that's one of the reasons why I do this, why I go to these, to somewhere like the jungle, which just the place itself is completely outside of my control, and into these psychedelic circles where the people I'm there with are outside of my control. And I've met some amazing people. I met some extraordinary sort of people there who taught me stuff. And that's just not going to happen in my own comfort space. So that's one of the reasons why I do it. But yeah, it is, you do roll the dice when you do it.
Totally. Okay. I'll let somebody else join the conversation.
Yeah, no, that's always
that
good
was
to
great.
talk to you, mate.
Yep. Till next time, I guess.
All right, dude.
Have a great evening.
You too, mate. Ciao.
Bye-bye.
So let's see who's the next person. I think we'll go with, I think Damras is the next person. So Damras, you should have a little button where you can click and come speak. Hello.
Rob.
How you doing?
How are you, man?
I'm doing pretty good, mate. And you?
I'm great. Glad that you're back from the Amazon.
Me too, mate.
Back from the West. I wanted to talk today about something that about 3 weeks ago I managed to get my hands on Changa, and I knew very little about it. Sort of found me by the grace of God, and then about 2 weeks ago I found out who Julian was.
Right, yep.
And then funny enough, right before I saw your live stream, I saw, oh, of course Rob has a video with Julian that just came out. And I had a very interesting experience with Changa that sort of changed my understanding, or not completely changed, but it made me, I was watching during your video, you said you were more skeptical, take the psychological approach to the whole other realm thing. And I'm usually the same, but I had one Changa experience that sort of made me see more what Julian and others are sort of talking about, as far as it being a real concrete ecology of spirits of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to know, have you ever tried Changa, or have you had any experiences with ayahuasca where the spirits felt their presence was undeniably real to you? Like, I didn't get to finish your video with Julian yet. I'm excited to, but then I saw you were streaming, so I was like, oh, I might as well tune in. But yeah, I wanted to know, have you ever tried Changa, or has it not come into your hands?
No, I've tried Changa. So yeah, that was, I've actually got a few conversations I've had with Julian. So if you apart from the most recent one, there was an earlier one. So what happened was I'd done like kind of like normal DMT a lot, and then like I was quite late to getting Changa. So I think it was only about maybe a year or so ago that I first tried Changa, and I did it and I made a video about it, sort of comparing the Changa experience to the kind of normal, if you could ever call DMT normal, but normal DMT. And Julian, and I was aware of who Julian Palmer was because he's kind of a bit of a legend as like the guy who sort of invented Changa. And
Yeah.
so he popped up, he commented on my video, and I was like, "Are you like the Julian Palmer?" And so we got chatting, and then we did a conversation after that, and I was kind of a little bit starstruck because it's almost like kind of having a conversation with like Terence Kennedy. I think Julian's got a lot of critics, but one thing I can say about him, he's like a pioneer in terms of, he's fully absorbed into this kind of like psychonaut exploration. So I've got a lot of respect for him for that, even though I don't necessarily agree with everything he says. So yeah, I've tried Changa. I think it's, my preference is I still prefer normal DMT, just because I find it sort of just easier in terms of the taking it. Changa's a bit, like, you have to, it's more smoking it, so it's a kind of a little bit harsher on to take. It's also, I just find vaping DMT just a lot more easy with the current sort of kind of decent vaping tools.
That's true. Yeah, it really simplifies the entire process of
Yeah.
the whole thing. I do find that Changa for me has made it easier because freebase is easy to burn. And I recently, the other day, I have friends who'd never tried DMT, and I had Changa, so I had a what called a Changa circle I discovered, and I gave them all some, and they said they found it easier because the freebase is easier to burn unless you make a cartridge, which I'm now gonna just sort of go that route. But I did find that it made it smoother. And I had one experience which I've never had before with DMT at all, where the entities actually appeared in my realm, whereas before I'd only closed eye visuals visited other realms and met entities, typically with eyes closed. Whereas the entities were walking around my backyard and they were quite concrete. And so that's why I say it sort of, I came back from that, and I'd never done ayahuasca, so I don't know if that happens on ayahuasca.
Oh, yeah.
But it made me, yeah, right. I figure it does. And it sort of made me, the mix of the MAOI and the Changa gave me a kind of new perspective on also the intelligence of the other plants mixed in with the DMT and how they work together.
Yeah.
Which was a very interesting layer. But yeah, it really sort of put a new perspective in my head as far as maybe it isn't a real ecology of spirits. I still haven't met any like negative entities that you have to fight or anything like that. I don't. But yeah, I found it interesting. You and Julian's conversation.
Yeah. So in terms of like the question around the kind of the realness of the sort of like the psychedelic realm, let's call it that for its better. So it's a kind of tricky one to pass out because it's probably, again, it would require like its own sort of video, but I don't the language kind of fails a little bit here, but just try and go with me.
Most definitely.
So I don't dispute the realness of the psychedelic realm, no more than I would dispute the realness of the experiential realm or the emotional realm or the dream realm. When I talk about sort of realness of things, what I tend to think of that there is. So I would say that around us we have a material realm, that I'm sat here, I'm on my computer and I'm dealing in a material realm. And when people talk about realness, they tend to think about things being real in this realm. So this is where these are things I kind of like push back against on my channel, where people start talking about having psychic powers and sort of being able to sort of make things move or manifest within the real world or within this world, the material world. So I would say that's kind of that stuff is where I think it gets silly, and I think it also becomes pointless because I don't need things to be in the real world. When I say real, I mean material world, in order for them to be real. I don't need the love I have for my children to manifest as pink fluffy hearts here on this webcam. It doesn't take anything away from the realness of my emotional state or my psychological state, or my dream state, or my psychedelic states. I think my psychedelic states are completely real to me within those states, just like my dreams and my emotions are. That doesn't mean that I think my psychedelic states bleed over into the material. That seems to me like a kind of a childish way of looking at like things have got to be able to appear here in order for them to be real. I recognize these as kind of like separate magisteria, these are separate domains which overlap through me, through each of us. So that if I say to you, I have a deep love for my wife and my children, then you can probably see it in my behavior, but you don't need me to produce something in material reality. Likewise with the psychedelics stuff, these things are completely, these are having a profound effect on me, and my behavior and stuff. It's so this is the manifestation of my psychedelic experience, but I don't necessarily need to have that be present as like some of the stuff that Julian describes as like sort of seeing tentacles sort of come out to people. Now maybe that's happening and that's his experience, but I don't think it's. I always tend to ground these things within my experience as a human being, and that. I mean, first of all, I don't see that. I certainly see that kind of stuff within when I'm on ayahuasca or DMT or mushrooms or whatever. Sure, I see, what people would call like the spirits around me, and that is because I'm kind of like my consciousness is going more into that realm than it is this material realm. But that's more me as a visitor going that way, I see, than them sort of coming through as a portal and sort of, so that when people are out shopping, they've got parasites attached to the back of their heads feeding on them. But hey, Julian's deeper into this stuff,
right?
So
it's a thing where I haven't taken so much, so maybe if that has happened, I would never know.
Yeah.
But,
I just kind of the way I look at it is just like. That's my experience. That's why I'm not going to.
Right.
I mean, with any of my kind of, when I talk to people, even people I disagree with, I never try to disregard people's subjective experience. I might disagree with their conclusions, and if they say that they can do something extraordinary, I might call bullshit on it. But I'm never going to say to somebody, you did not experience that, because I've got no idea what they experienced.
And especially when you're working with psychedelics, the rule book is different for everybody, seemingly.
Yeah, but in regards to what you're saying about do I see sort of entities and stuff? I mean, particularly when I drink ayahuasca, there is a moment there where when you're in this pitch black room, and entities, spirits, whatever you want to call them, aliens, whatever, pretty much fill the room around you, and it can get quite uncomfortable at times because you feel like you're being scanned. You feel like you have things getting in your face, like really getting in your face, in ways where, like, if you were used to, say, taking acid recreationally and things get a bit distorted, this is a completely different thing from like something being there next to you, like peering at you and sort of, and you're like, whoa, it can be very jarring, and you just have to kind of like, okay, this is do your thing, this is what I came for, and kind of let these things explore you. So it feels extremely real. And my kind of take on that, particularly with the shamanism thing, is I think the realm of plant consciousness, just like these other magisteria that I've talked around of like psychology, emotions, dreams, whatever, then it feels like there is a realm of plant consciousness, plant spirits, whatever you want to call, just spirits, whatever you want to call them, that is there, that can be accessed. I mean, so I hope that kind of like passes.
I believe you're spot on. Hello?
Yeah, I'm still, sorry, mate, I'm still here, sorry.
No, sorry. I wanted to say, back to that bit that you mentioned about, the lack of our things that we cannot see and their sort of eternal reality despite that. Mm-hmm. I had one person who broke through the other day on the Changa circle and came back, and they were sort of ready to talk about it and said that they felt like they had experienced an enlightenment of some sort. Mm-hmm. but then they were worried that it was fleeting and not real, and that it was something sort of that they were imagining. And I told them pretty much what you said, was that, well, that's sort of up to you, regardless of whether the enlightenment was real or by whatever standards, it was experienced the same by you, and depending on what you make of that moving forward, it'll sort of, the real goes out of the question, I think, entirely. And I think we have a lack of understanding of what real actually is, that we will have to confront later on as a society.
Yeah. And also what enlightenment is. And I think, enlightenment is a word that gets thrown around a lot within psychedelic circles. But I mean, I can certainly relate to that, because a lot of my experiences in this last couple of weeks have been, let's just say, moments of revelation, I'll put it that way, whereby, and one of them really came, I'll just give you a very simple example. I was sat there in one of these ayahuasca experiences, and I just realized that I just had this moment of absolute mental clarity. And in fact, I wasn't thinking at that point. The noise in my head was completely silent. I was completely just having this moment of total awareness, and it was blissful. I was kind of like, I had this kind of like, I was just completely outside of my own head. I wasn't like having this.
I've certainly had that, where you reach this sort of state of illumination. I would say, where it's thoughtless illumination. You don't have to think. You're in a state where you're so aware of things that you somehow never saw before. And
it's like a pure kind of flow state kind of thing. And
I wonder if it comes from the plants, or I feel like I've reached similar states on LSD, but working with the plants, it's so clear, and it also happens very smoothly. And revelation is a good word for it. It does feel it's a feeling of divinity.
Now the thing is, with something like that, which I think is similar to what you with your friend's experience, it's kind of easy to think like it is a fleeting moment, and then you can sort of think, well, what's the point then? So like the next day, the next day, kind of like, thoughts begin to intrude again, and then there's kind of the thought is, was that a waste of time? Is that just something I'm only ever going to experience this? And I think no. The point is there that you've now seen that this is possible, that this is something that you can sort of work towards then. And I think that's the kind of the point with these psychedelics. They're not there to spoon feed you. They're not there to sort of like just magically fix you.
They're there to show you what is possible.
Yeah, they shine a light, and it's like, look, here is a kind of a path that is possible to you. Now you've had a taste of it. Now it's up to you. And so I really sort of like, I've been diving into meditation. I've been spending like hours meditating during this last 2 weeks, really sort of trying to train myself into that kind of being able to, just be very mindful of my own thoughts and trying to find this kind of quiet place within my own head.
Cultivating this inner silence.
Exactly, yeah.
I think actually the plants, I feel the plants have pushed me towards that more than anything, because they have that revelation built into them. And so when you take them, that enters you, and your thoughts separate. And I had another person in that Changa circle tell me what you just told me, that he said usually his mind is very cluttered and he's always worrying and thinking, but he had this complete mental silence where he didn't have to carry it anymore. And I told him, well, that's good. That just means that's what you have to cultivate in day-to-day life, and it's hard, but it is possible.
Yeah, exactly. And this kind of ties back into the video I put out just before I went on, where I was talking about integration, because this is kind of one of my lessons for, it's like, what is the truth that has been revealed to me during one of these ayahuascas? Well, the truth that is revealed to me is that I am not my thoughts. That the thoughts that come to me, like that are sort of populate in my head, are not the entirety of me. That there is a bigger awareness of Rob in which these thoughts are populating. And some of them get very loud, and some of them kind of can get convinced that they are me, that is the entirety of me. and this is normally when you find yourself kind of like ranting, you know, in your own head, or at least I do anyway. It's like fucking,
Yeah,
you know,
no, I mean everybody does it.
yeah, and you can really get sort of sucked into thinking that's you, and that, oh, I'm so angry, I'm having an angry day today. I'm like, and then
I really believe this thing and I care about it. You know, we
Yeah,
get
yeah.
riled up and
yeah, but when you can sort of step back into space, like, okay, I can recognize that. Okay, maybe I'm angry, maybe I'm pissed off, but that is not the entirety of me, and it
Right.
gives you sort of space to work on it. So, yeah, this has really been a big deal for me, because that was one of the things I went on this retreat with. I was finding that I had a lot of stuff going on in my home life, in work life, and that I was getting sort of lost in these kind of thought patterns where I
these
thought
life things. Man.
yeah, and I thought it was me, and it wasn't. It doesn't mean, and I think just to sort of be clear here to some people, it doesn't mean you can turn your thoughts off or something, that you just sort of like you're walking around in some sort of like permanent om state. But
Yeah.
you can recognize with that when you are lost in thought.
Right, it's a process of observing the
Exactly.
mind, and then it's sort of, you can sort it out that way. You can have the thought, you know, have the fantasy, the desire, whatever it is, and just observe it and let it be, instead of sort of pushing it away or hiding it or denying it or something, where it just causes, you know, turns into neurosis.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's, you know, one of the things that causes people like the most suffering is when you get lost in these thoughts, and you start sort of becoming a reactive person rather than sort of being able to just sort of assess things properly. So yeah, for some of, like I say, some of these ceremonies, and I'm looking forward to sort of sharing some of my trip reports in upcoming videos. But yeah, some of it's been a
Yeah, we can't wait. The ayahuasca and working with the plants, I do love DMT by itself. That experience is unspeakable. But the mixture of the other plants really adds an interesting layer of it, because it sort of centers plant intelligence as the main thing. So I noticed that my Changa trips and others Changa trips that have come back with have been more centered around just nature and Mother Nature.
Yeah.
And I wonder why that is, and plant intelligence in particular. Whereas, you know, normal pre-based DMT trips or vaporizing DMT trips, you don't usually get that, or you do, but you can, but it doesn't always come back. Do you think that that's all in the mind, or is it all set in setting, or is there something to that where the plants and the plant intelligence, the mixture of plants, actually affects the experience?
I lean towards the latter, so that I think that it makes sense to me that when we take something into ourselves, that we are kind of, on some level, we are merging with that thing. So, you know, we take like these like living plants into ourselves, and, you know, you could go to, you know, have a whole conversation where the plants have consciousness, whether plants are alive in the way that we think so. I believe that they are. I believe that plants have their own consciousness and display behavior just like other living things. And that if we take that sort of consciousness into self, you know, the kind of phrase of like, you are what you eat, then yeah, and that's certainly the subjective experience, as you described, that there is.
Yeah, no, I believe this is the case.
Yeah, that there is an other consciousness in there, and I think you're right in that that's different somehow to DMT. You know, DMT is a kind of interesting one because you get this feeling of others as well, with these like other entities, but it's a different feeling. Like I've always described DMT as being much more kind of sci-fi. And also, it's much more out there,
more cosmic.
Yeah. Whereas the kind of like the others that you meet within, taking something like, I say, even taking something like mushrooms or particularly like ayahuasca, feel much more organic, much more grounded. In fact, they visually appear in that sort of way to me.
Definitely. They appear very, even when they're celestial feeling, they still feel like these are divine spirits of the earth in a way, and they present themselves that way.
Yeah, totally agree.
I was quite skeptical until, you know, I'm a naturally skeptical person. Not to say that I was like plant spirits don't exist or something like that, but I never had a direct experience with. I got the Changa. I wasn't sure exactly how much to smoke, so I loaded up about half of a bowl. I let it rip, and I broke through, I think maybe my biggest breakthrough so far. And but because of the MAOI lasted about 30 minutes. And that I'd never had that because I'd only had vaporized DMT. So I had about 10-15 minutes of open eye, very, very powerful visions of where I could feel a sort of dialogue between the Harmalas and the DMT. And it was a very interesting experience to have these plant consciousnesses actually working within you.
Yeah, I mean, the harmless is a kind of very interesting compound on its own. I think it's probably vastly underappreciated because I think most people, particularly within like sort of like the DMT community, just see it as a mechanism for enhancing a DMT trip. But it's not. It's got its own character. It
does. It definitely is. As a plant of its own that does its own thing.
Yeah. I mean, and it's very noticeable within something like ayahuasca, which is why the brew is named ayahuasca, because they sort of in that tradition, they see that as the most important component, and you can definitely feel the difference between like say ayahuasca and something like farmahuasca, where you sort of there's more stuff going on in there, and it does have a different sort of character to it. So yeah, I mean, but even just like if you take like extracted harmless on its own, it's got its own energy to it, and it's kind of, I think it's worth exploring just on its own.
Yeah, I definitely am looking forward to exploring each plant on its own, and then sort of circling back, and it's interesting how DMT works with each plant, and it sort of feels like, I mean, I don't know how DMT fits into the whole thing exactly, but it feels like a kind of energizer or a communicator, a facilitator for this experience of all these plants. And it's pretty beautiful.
Yeah, the way I've always thought of DMT, and this kind of it ties back into one of the conversation or the commentary I did on one of Martin Ball's video, where he was like comparing 5-MeO DMT versus DMT, and he was kind of making the argument that like 5-MeO DMT is objectively better. The role I see of something like DMT, which I feel like DMT is so useful and powerful, is it has this amazing narrative component, and so that it really can take you away on these stories. Now, when you combine that with something like Harmless, which has this deep kind of like emotional component, this emotional unlocking, and this kind of energetic movement, and you see this on people either on ayahuasca or on Harmless. There's a lot of like juddering and shaking, like a lot of this energy kind of movement. And then when you can that combined with the storytelling of DMT, kind of can really unlock, like, where is this emotion coming from? Like, what does this mean? And I think that's why the two together are so powerful in terms of this healing, because you get the thing which is doing the healing, which according to the sort of Shipibo tradition is the ayahuasca, but you get the ability to frame it within a narrative which is coming from the DMT. So the two together, I think, it really is an amazing combination. It's much more than just one of the long DMT.
Right. It's one of the combination creating this kind of, DMT already has a narrative built into it, which is strange enough. And, Martin is, he's a cool guy, but to say one is better than the other, I think, you like one more. They're two different things. Mm-hmm. But the narrative component combined with this emotional lengthening aspect, it allows for the breakthrough experience to be more, you can get more out of it.
Yeah, meaningful, I think.
So yeah, more meaningful, most definitely. I mean, the not to say that the freebase pure DMT breakthrough is not meaningful, but it's so much harder to bring back the pieces because it's so fast, whereas the Harmalas really lets you grab at things and I was able to just sort of be coherent and really experience it without the sort of shock of blasting on right away.
Yeah, I mean, I love both sort of sides. I do.
Yeah, me too. I really do love both.
Yeah, I mean, I the kind of like the 5-minute break thing, because I mean, first of all, it doesn't feel like 5 minutes. It feels like it can feel as long as it wants to.
Yeah,
that's you get this very pure, just cosmic story, and I mean, that's the thing with DMT. It's like, it's what the fuck amazing. It's just so like but in terms of like sort of, I think like the deeper self-exploration, then yeah, I think DMT combined with harmless is much more effective there, because then it becomes your story much more than this kind of like the story of the universe. And I like both. There's places for both of those things.
Yeah, one trip is particularly for this exploration. One I would say is for this more deeper self exploration.
Exactly.
I think it's good to have both.
Yeah. It's all tools in the toolbox. That's the way I see things. That's why I don't like to get into these kind of conversations, which is better or which is more powerful or any of that. It's like they're all equally powerful within their own.
Right. They will all knock you on your ass if you take enough.
Yeah.
And it's really just about the moment. And I, with the realms, I'm not even sure. I had one person in the Tonga breakthrough tell me they closed their eyes for a moment and they were on a stage in front of an audience, and the audience were, doing all sorts of weird hyperspace things, when the room is full and there's stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
It's such the varying degree of where it could go. To say, better or worse is a little bit ridiculous. But yeah, Rob, it was great talking with you today, as always.
Yeah, likewise, mate. All right, dude.
Yeah.
I'll speak to you again soon. Okay, so who's next? I've got I think Antony was next one. Tony, you should have a little button if you want to click that.
Oh yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, mate. Loud and clear.
Oh, hi Rob.
How you doing, bud?
How are you doing after the trip? Sorry, my tongue is gonna be twisting. I'm always nervous when I call.
No, mate, don't be nervous. Yeah, I'm good, mate. I only got back on Wednesday night, so yeah, I'm still a little bit sort of, kind of feeling a little bit in between places at the moment, just catching up on my sleep. But otherwise, good, mate. Yeah, I feel it's been a good retreat. It's been a good few weeks break, but it's good to be home. Obviously, it's been a long time away from Rachel and the kids, and you guys as well. I feel like I've not posted anything on the channel in ages. You still there, mate? Have I lost you?
Yeah. No, I'm listening to you. Sorry.
Oh no, mate. That was it. I was just saying. So I'm good. Is the answer to your question?
That. Looking forward to your trip reports.
Yeah, mate. Well, I think probably the trip reports I'm going to sit on for a while, because I like to sort of let these things bed in for a bit. So obviously I had like 8 experiences in quite a short space of time.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, we are not going anywhere, so.
Yeah. So, like I say, I want to kind of see how these stories settle into everything. But I mean, I've got a lot of stuff I'm going to be talking about, just in terms of that retreat in general. So I'm going to be sort of putting together a review of that retreat, putting out sort of my thoughts on these kind of like these kind of plant diets, just what I've been up to, and then yeah, I think the retreat, the actual
Rob,
trip reports will come out in like a few weeks.
I'm really sorry. Okay, because yeah, I was. I'm really sorry. I'm not at my home. I was disturbed, but now it's okay. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear, mate. Don't worry.
I'm really sorry. No, but I heard everything you say. But just some people entered my room, and that was okay.
It's fine, mate. It's not a problem.
Yeah, it's just a false start. Yes. So I actually had some things I wanted to talk to you about, but then when you had a conversation with Damras, I just, it kept triggering me. So I mean, not in a negative way, but I just really had some things I wanted to, I don't know, contribute or ask you,
Sure, go for it, dude.
So first of all, I was just like the smallest thing. I was thinking, you just reminded me when you spoke to Damras. That was the thing I kept noticing all the time in different videos of not just you, but a lot of other people who take psychedelics and YouTubers who do that kind of thing. And I was just wondering about this kind of phenomenon. I don't know if it's just me who is seeing it, that there's a lot of conversation about what are psychedelics for, what do they do to you, and are the effects lasting, and it's all about what can they do for you and what use are they, and if there are no use, then then it would be it would be a shame to take them. Then it's kind of, I feel this kind of narrative that they need to have a use, they need to have an effect, otherwise they would kind of lose their importance, you know. I feel like, okay, basically I just feel like this whole conversation is triggered by something deeper, which is basically a need for excuse, you know.
Yeah.
That
I think I know where you're going with this, mate, and I think it's a kind of a misfire. What I see in a lot of kind of, you know, forums and stuff like that is people looking for it's like the truth or meaning. Like I've had this experience and I think it's revealed this, and so this is like the truth, and then perhaps later on you might start thinking, well, that's not the truth anymore, and so what was the point? Or like a psychedelic's kind of bullshit or whatever like that.
right.
So, I mean, my kind of answer to this, and you know, I've kind of made videos talking about these kind of people, is like absolutely not. These things are not the truth. I do not think they are a crystal ball. I do not think these things are giving, you know, data
Right.
that can be used. What these things are is a chance to look at yourself, at your sort of place in the universe from a different position, and sort of. But this is why I always kind of like try and talk about bringing it back to your experience as a human being. If what
Yes, right.
So if like it's the same as anything, if what it's doing for you doesn't translate back into this, because throughout the duration of your life, you're going to end up back in this. And all these people talking about becoming enlightened and transcended. And again, I don't think these people are using the words enlightenment in any kind of right
Well,
way.
I was hoping you would be enlightened, right? But you said no.
Well, I mean, maybe I am. I don't like using those terms because I find them sort of pretentious. What I'd rather say is like, I am a human being, and I don't.
I think you didn't understand me
Okay.
what I was trying to say, because I really understand what you're saying now. Because I mean, you talked about this already. I don't know. I heard you talking about this, so I know exactly what you're saying, and I agree. But my my question, not question, my kind of observation was that when we talk, even when you are talking right now, which is okay, which is totally all right. I actually really respect that, and I share the view, you know, that it's really nice to bring something back and you know, to integrate that in your life. I do that as well. I try to take something into my life with this, but on other hand, I feel like this entire conversation about what can they do for you, and can, you know, about the healing of these things, or how exactly of taking something back, or are the sorry, exactly, nervousness. Are the effects lasting, or are they not? You know, it's very valuable when there are effects, and it's valuable when it's healing, and it's valuable when we integrate the effects, you know, integrate the insights. But on other hand, it's kind of like and kind of rightly trying to convince the unconvinced that psychedelics are somehow useful or something. And I believe they are, but on other hand, I think that it's my observation that I feel like some people kind of need this excuse to explain why they take psychedelics, when actually the fact might be, you know, if you are really into healing your traumas and stuff, you may be the person who was looking for just therapy and more therapy and more therapy. The fact that we use psychedelics is also because we just really enjoy them, you know. We like the cosmic things, we like the experience, we like the awesomeness, even if it lasts only, you know, a couple hours and there are no effects after, and it's not integrated at all. Even then, you just really like it because it's cool. And I mean, it's just interesting for you. It's kind of your thing. And it's not.
Well, let me start, because I would.
You see what I mean?
Yeah, I think so, and I would completely agree.
Excuse for taking it, and which is there, but the reason is there, but it's not necessary.
Yeah, I mean, I think some people can get very lost in justifying these things, and it can happen in a lot of different ways. So you get people who try and justify it in by saying that this is kind of they do this because it's enhancing the default mode network, and it's allowing them to go into flow state more, or it's allowing them to be better at their job because it's doing some, you know, psychedelic microdosing. It's doing this, or
There's a lot of things which will help as well, you know.
yeah. Or you get people who say, yeah, they it's because they want to heal from this. And, you know, there's kind of phenomenon that me and Rachel have talked about before on this channel, where like we call it like sort of pain porn, where people are just almost inventing things that are wrong with them, so or leaning into them heavily, just so that they can justify why they're doing this. Now,
drugs, yes.
Now, me personally, I you know, and I hope this is what I kind of put on the channel. I try and straddle across all these things. So I've got zero problem with saying I like having my mind completely fucking blown, and sort of, you know, and I'd, you know, make videos about silly videos about sort of, you know, exploring space in camper vans and stuff like that. And I think that's fine. There's nothing wrong at all. And I would encourage everyone in this sort of psychedelic, there is nothing wrong with just having an awesome time. I think it's one of the most spiritual things you can do, is just connect with yourself, with like some unimaginable story of the universe, and just come back thinking, wow, this is fucking amazing. This is just, you know, to have that moment of awe and wonder and joy is beautiful. I would want every human being who wants it to be able to experience that. Likewise, I think if, you know, again, for someone like myself who did have things to heal, the fact that you can go and do that is, you know, is also like kind of amazing. But that's not the total story, no more than the sort of the default mode network and neurogenesis and all that is the full story. I think people should do these things for whatever reason, and you know, this is why I'm not hugely interested in things like, you know, when people ask a question like, you know, is this real, or what's the meaning behind how psychedelics work? Is it aliens, or is it portals, or is it just drugs? Like, who gives a fuck? Like, we are human beings having experiences, and some of these experiences are amazing. Like, that's enough for me. And so the kind of, you know, I don't need necessarily the story of like, oh, this is solving all, you know, this is healing my kidneys or whatever. You know, sure, for some people that's what they go there for. But yeah, I think everyone should just be, if the story that why you go using these things is that they're fucking amazing, then they definitely are. And that's fine. Am I understanding you right? Am I on the right track now, or have I lost you? Are you still there, dude? Have I lost you? If you're speaking, we can't hear you, Anthony. Okay, I think we've lost you, mate. Okay, so let's go on to the next person. Sushi Cowboy. Oops. Invite to speak. Sushi Cowboy, you should have a little button thing you can press. Okay, or maybe not. Sushi Cowboy, no. I'll give you 5 seconds, mate. Oh, there we go. Hello. 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 The joys of technical difficulties when you're doing live streaming. Well, if you're there, Sushi Cowboy, we can't hear you, mate. So, no. Okay, I'll move back to the audience, mate. Let's just do a couple of the, see if there's any questions that have popped up in the text chat. Oh wow, there's quite a few. Let's see what people are saying. Someone's going to Arcana Amazon in August, but I'm excited but very nervous. Very understandable, MD. Yeah, I mean it's always nerve-wracking traveling to somewhere like Peru, but Arcana is a great center, so I'm sure you'll be fine there. From Brian Abara, I've never done Aya or DMT in any form, but I want to. I feel it's been calling my turn. Yeah, mate. Have a look through my videos. I would strongly. I think it's fairly obvious. I would recommend it. I think DMT is probably the most extraordinary experience available to a human being. It's amazing. So yeah, if you get the chance, definitely do it. Let's see. Lots of talk, people chatting. Mighty Magpie asks a question: what retreats would you guys recommend for a first timer? What I would say, I've actually got a video on this topic, Mighty Magpie. It's kind of, I think it's titled "Choosing Your Retreat," because it depends what you're looking for. It depends what your budget is. It depends how far you're looking to travel. Depends what kind of medicines you're looking to work with. So yeah, probably check out that video. If you look through my list of all videos, I think I put out around about this time last year. But it's called like Choosing a Retreat. But basically, kind of the simple advice is make yourself maybe a list of what it is that you're looking for. Like, are you prepared to go to somewhere like the jungle? Do you want it to be somewhere more closer to home? How long would you want to be away for? What kind of, how much money have you got to spend on one of these things? Would it be critically important to you if do you want to have your own bathroom? Would you want to have air conditioning? Are there things that you just would have to have? Does it need to be able to have wheelchair access? Does it, whatever it is you want, do you want to work with like a particular tradition? So yeah, just kind of put that list together, check out that video, and yes, and then once you kind of know what it is you're looking for, then it's easier to find a retreat that will match up to those kind of expectations. Just as a kind of a completely out of the blue shot, then yeah, I mean, I've, as you know, many people have seen on my channel, I've been to Arcana many times. I think as a center there for a first time, it's hard to go wrong. It is expensive, so again, it depends what kind of budget you're working on. But as a kind of a holistic experience, I could pretty much recommend Arcana, and yeah, I think you would be hard pressed to not have a good time at Arcana. But again, that's whether you're willing to travel to Peru and stuff like that. Okay, let's try Sushi Cowboy again. I'll invite you up against Sushi Cowboy. I'm just going to keep doing tech stuff and see if you can sort out your mic. Back to there. Jordan asks, would I recommend Arcana after the upgrades? I can't say it because I've not been on retreat at Arcana since the upgrades. All I can say is that I was kind of, it took me back how much it had changed. But it would be unfair of me to say I would or would not recommend Arcana after it was. Basically, what I would say is that it's a vastly different center in terms of physical appearance than last time I was there in September. And whether that makes for a good or a bad experience, I don't know, but it's definitely a different experience, or a different perception. It's because I've been going there for like 6 years or something. It was since I first went to that center, and so it's got a place in my heart. It's kind of lodged there, and I've got a lot of memories there. So to see it change so drastically was jarring. But I'm maybe that's just my own bias of that. Let's have a look. So from Brian Abara, it says, the diet portion seems complex. I'm just so educated. It's really an infant in the learning of all this and just beginning to learn the vocab and terminology. Don't worry about it, Brian. It's, yeah, when you come into these kind of community where people are talking about all sorts of things and using all kinds of language to describe these kind of what are up until that point of these altered states, then yeah, there's a lot there of new language, new terminology, new vocabulary. Some of it can sound like complete bullshit, particularly if you're skeptical of it. It's just a new experience. It's the same as anything else. It's like if you were learning to rock climb to get to the top of Mount Everest. There'd be a whole lot of new vocabulary, rules, stuff you have to do, best practices. Same thing, same as if you're learning to skydive or scuba dive or anything. don't worry about it, mate. Just take it at your own pace. It's no one requires you to be an expert scuba diver on your first dive in. You learn, and if you actually spend time getting accustomed to each thing, then you'll actually find that a much better experience than if you just pretend that you know it all and dive straight in and then end up dead on the bottom of the ocean. So just take your time with it, mate, and don't worry about it. Okay, let's see. So Sushi Cowboy, we're still not able to hear you, so let's have a look. And I'll go to next person, and this might have to be the last one, but this is an old favourite. It's my old buddy Wildman Ninja. So Ninja, you should have a button there you can click to come up. You there, Ninja? I think you're muted, mate. If you're talking, dude, I think your microphone's on mute, so you have to unmute it. Ninja, come on, find the mute button. Come on, mate. You can navigate an assault course, but you can't find that mute button. Come on, dude. I know you can do this. There, Ninja. I can't hear you, mate. For anyone who doesn't know, Wildman Ninja is an ex-participant from what's it called? It's called Ninja Warrior. Yeah, I think we call it something different in the UK. But so he's got some videos on his YouTube channel of him doing like crazy feats of strength and stuff like that. But unfortunately, he's not quite mastered the microphone on his computer. So, come on, Ninja. I'll give you a few more seconds, mate. Can you do it? Can you do it, Ninja? No. Ninja. No. Okay, I'm going to have to move you back to the audience, Ninja. Right, I think I'm going to bring Anthony back up because he was just talking. I wonder if we got cut off last time. You still there, dude? Have I cut everybody off? I can't hear anybody now. Maybe I fucked it up on my side. Can anybody still hear me even? Dun. Fuck knows. Maybe it's one of the IT. Maybe this is Rachel's. Rachel's hacking my computer and she's Okay, so Janet says she can hear Ninja. Could everybody hear Ninja then apart from me? What the fuck's going on? Janet says she can hear everyone on Discord. Rob, I've got the issue. Is it me? Shit. Right, okay. Well, I think maybe that might be the IT gods telling me because this. Oh, right. Something's going on. I wonder if it's. I bet this is fucking Rachel. She always does this. Like she's, it's when she's trying to send some kind of signal like she wants me to get off the computer because she wants to do something in here. So we can hear you, but you can't hear Ninja. No one can hear Ninja. Right, okay. Well, I'll tell you what, guys. What I'll do, let me just, I'm going to apologize. Firstly, I apologize to Ninja. I apologize for calling into repute your ability to navigate a microphone. But yeah, I think maybe that's probably a signal for it's time to wrap up because I'm going to start pressing buttons. And what has happened here? Don't know. When did it break? Anyway, I'll just do a few questions left from the text chat and then I'll wrap it up. So let's see what people are saying. Apologies, everyone. I'll sort it for next time. So looks like some people saying let's go to Arcana. There's people asking about a lot of stuff around difference between like ayahuasca and sort of straight DMT. I've got sort of videos on this, so it's ayahuasca is not just an elongated DMT experience. It is like we're talking with some of the callers tonight. It when you add in this kind of harmless component, it becomes a whole different animal. It's let's see. Sorry, I'm just a bit thrown off by these technical problems. Okay, I'm hoping that everyone could hear like the different callers during the night. Then I'm wondering if it's what should have fucked up. This is what happens when I go on one of these retreats. I completely forget all this technical stuff. I'm sat here jabbering on about all the kind of the mystical insights I've had for learning about sort of meditation and finding awareness within my own space. But yeah, I kind of fucked it up on the old technical solution. But anyway, on that note, I think I will probably end the stream now, hoping that it's worked. I think this is much, yeah. I hope you've enjoyed this. It's really thrown me off this now. I'm kind of like, have you guys been able to hear? Can someone just confirm in the chat? Have you guys been able to hear the other callers all night, or has it just been like I've just been talking to normal people? Okay, so I think people have been getting it. Fine, let's do that. We can hear. Good, thanks, Karina. Right, guys. So I'm going to call it a day there. Just want to say thank you to everyone who's called to take part. Again, I love having this opportunity to talk with you guys. Thanks to everyone who's sort of talked in the chat. All I'll say is stay tuned. I'm going to be exploring all these things I've kind of briefly touched on tonight in much more detail in upcoming videos. So I think the next video I'm going to do and try and have it by next weekend will be a review of the retreat center I'm staying at. That's been sort of interesting because it's been like the longest time I've spent at one time in one of these retreat centers doing such a prolonged amount of sort of ayahuasca and other plants over that time. Also, I'm going to be putting out, this chat with this guy who's apprenticing. Just some thoughts around kind of, what do we mean when people talk about going to these things for healing? Because, are we talking about like being able to heal things like, cancer or other serious diseases, or we're just talking about purely psychological things? So I've got some thoughts around that. And yeah, so stay tuned for that. The usual stuff applies. If anybody wants to have a chat with me or message me about anything, best place to do so is on Discord. Just come on there, just send me a message. I'm happy. I'll talk to absolutely anybody about pretty much anything as long as time allows. So yeah, on that note, guys, I will say awesome to be back, awesome to catch up with you, and I will catch you guys next time.